we have a president who comes to power who's a bit of a lunatic. This is Theodore Teddy Roosevelt. When he comes to power, this is where he gets to use, I guess you could say, his gifts. Teddy Roosevelt was fantastically active. Like to a point where you wouldn't even believe that he's a normal human being. Teddy Roosevelt got about 4 hours of sleep a night. He was constantly doing something, constantly running around. He was a boxer. In fact, he would have boxing matches in the White House. He is very, very active. He's a hunter. You can see him here on safari. This is him with a massive bull elephant that he shot. Presidents don't do this anymore. This is him, basically just a little window into his life. Now, I should probably tell you this story about him. Being that he is a hunter, he would often go out and try to kind of, he was an adrenaline addict is what he was. So he asked one of his hunting buddies, one of his guides, he says, I want to go hunt the most dangerous thing we can. I want to go hunt a grizzly bear. Said, Mr. President, I advise against it. Don't do that. They hunt back. He goes, let's go. They go to northern Wyoming. They track this bear for days. They finally find this bear in the clearing. And his guide says, Mr. President, it's your shot. Here's your bear. The president lines up his shot, very easy, very steady, pulls the trigger. The bear goes down. Said, good shot, Mr. President. You have your bear. Went out of the bushes. Comes 2 bear cubs. 2 bear cubs. The president shot their mother. Abandoned. Now, this, again, it gives you a little window into his mind here. He looks at these 2 bear cubs. He says, I can't believe what I've just done. So his guide says, Mr. President, there's really only one thing we can do. These little bears are either going to starve to death or we have to kill them as well. So they go up to the bear, and the 2 bear cubs climb the tree, and his guide says, Mr. President, the humane thing to do is to kill the bear cubs. And he says, there's no way I'm shooting bear cubs in a tree. Let's bring him home with us. All right. He takes the 2 bear cubs to the White House. They live in the White House for months and months and months. These cute baby bear cubs are not bear cubs anymore. They are becoming bigger and bigger grizzly bears. In the White House. You can't have that. You can't have assistants being eaten by bears in the White House. So they go, Mr. President, your bear cubs, we can't have them here anymore. What's the plan now? He says, we have to go release them in safe spots. Let's go back to northern Wyoming. And we will create a national park for them. We will create Yellowstone National Park. The first American national park is thousands upon thousands of protected wilderness in northern Wyoming for 2 bears. Now I should probably ask, anyone ever been to Yellowstone? Yeah, it's enormous how huge it is. All because of him. Now this is just one thing that kind of gives you a little window into his mind. But Teddy Roosevelt, constantly active, constantly the adrenaline junkie, said, it's my job, it's my power to be certain that these problems of industrialization get fixed. What he says is, I promise the American people a square deal. Now,
Good afternoon.
Have you ever heard what he says is, I promise the American people a square deal. Now I should ask, have you ever heard this phrase, a square deal, before? Not surprised. A square deal simply means that it's fair, that it's equal, that it's the same for everyone. What Teddy Roosevelt says is every American is going to receive fair treatment who has been abused by these big businesses. So let's kind of play this game a little bit here. What do you think Teddy Roosevelt has for an idea if someone has their arm ripped off by machinery of a big business? What might there be? They get cash. Then that big business has to be certain that that person gets a fair deal. Now, Teddy Roosevelt is really the first to kind of pave the way for this. He has a lot of work to do if he's ever going to get to the point that he wants. So he has to kind of go step by step. Maybe we're not to that point just yet, but Teddy Roosevelt has big ideas. What he says is step number one, we need to break up the trusts. We need to break up the monopolies that hurt the American people. He is going to go to court. If only there was a law that he could use to break up the monopolies. He goes to court with the Sherman Antitrust Act. Now, I do want to remind you, what was always the problem with the Sherman Antitrust Act? What was always the issue? What did Rockefeller always say? Well, guess what?
They could never come up with, like, a solid case.
Sure. The case is the problem. Because of what reason? What did Rockefeller always say? Well, yes, I think Sure. Says, what's a trust? Here's Teddy Roosevelt going to court saying, what do you mean, what's a trust? You're a trust. Stop with the semantics. Stop with the loopholes. You're obviously a trust. You're a monopoly. The seventh time Rockefeller goes to court, the court tells him, you are a monopoly. You need to break up the Standard Oil Company. Standard Oil will be broken up into a handful of companies called Mobil, Exxon, Conoco, Texaco. He now has, instead of one giant company, 4 giant companies. The ironic thing is, Rockefeller made way more money after Standard Oil was broken up than while it was in existence. But he does break the monopolies. Teddy Roosevelt will be known as the trust buster. During his presidency, he's going to break up 15 trusts. What he's doing is paving the way for other progressive presidents after him.